Hey guys, today we will be talking about another race, the Elven units. So the elves are all very good performing units. They focus on range, which deals high damage and can also go against the giant ranged cavalry units as well. Their fairly misleading unit description does them quite a disservice because the elves are all about hitting hard, with their melee infantry having some of the highest damage in the game, in spite of what the game tells you. Being able to do counterattacks is also a good advantage, and their high speed and many invasion skills give them surprising survivability, though in my opinion, they're still not better than the dwarves. Alright, let's take a look at the data first. Obviously, the units that deal the highest damage are the marsh wardens, the LOTR longshots, and sentinels, except for the two unique faction tier 4 units. The only unit really mainly used for attack should be the sentinels. In terms of siege, there aren't any very good units. If you have to choose one, the wardens and herald are still quite good. Elven units are really good at speed, especially the Elven bow cavalry with a speed of 127. This is a very high value. However, their shortcomings are also quite obvious. Their defense value is very low and their HP values are generally not very high. So use your advantages of damage and speed. Let's look at another table. The higher the level, the more resources and time is needed. You can also see that if you want to use the elves for attacking, the sentinels are a good substitute for the LOTR longshot and marsh wardens. The damage is only a little bit less, but the conscription time and resources spent are greatly reduced. Of course, the speed, defense, and HP are just a little bit worse as well. If you need a lot of high damage units, the sentinels are the better choice. The above are only the base stats from the analysis. So let's take a look at the skills. First up, we have the Elven archers. The Elven archers often avoid the first strike against them, making them last much longer. Even that small amount of time lets them fling enough arrows to win a fight. They have a higher maximum damage than the Rohirrim bowmen and deal more consistent damage than the dwarven axe throwers. Next, we have the hunters. They are a tier 1 ranged unit and their skills are swiftness. They can have a chance to evade the first attack against them. The Elven bow infantry have a chance to avoid the first enemy strikes towards them entirely through the army, so it's very useful. Next up, we have the marksmen. These are the tier 2 ranged units. Their skills are the same as the hunters and they can evade the first attack. They're pretty much all around the same as hunters, except a bit better and a bit more expensive. Next up, we have the sentinels. They are a tier 3 ranged units. Their skill is the same as the previous two units. It's like you threw more money at the marksmen to make them better. They still have the only swiftness skill, which allows them to evade the first blow against them as well. Now we have the marsh wardens. They are a tier 4 ranged unit. They have two skills, keen eye and indomitable. They can ignore their target's evasion and are unaffected by stun. They are a unique Lothlorien elite archer unit. Very unlike the other Elven archer units, Keen Eye lets them ignore the enemy's avoidance stat entirely when maxed out, and Indomitable makes them immune to stuns, keeping their arrows flying all the time. The LOTR longshot is a tier 4 ranged unit. Their two skills are Keen Eye, which ignores the target's evasion, and Volley, used against two targets on rounds 1, 4, 7, and 10 that deal a damage greater than 100%, but their normal attacks are disabled. They are a unique elite Elven archer unit of Linden. Between them and the stun-ignoring marsh wardens, these guys are more offensive focused. Now we will move on to the Elven bow cavalry. The Lothlorien cavalry prefers shooting people to running them down, and gets access to Giant Slayer early in the game, which is a big trouble for trolls. The horseback archer are a tier 1 ranged unit and their skills is mounted, which can reduce damage received. They'd be pretty standard if they had swords, but instead, they have bows. The cavalry archer is a tier 2 ranged unit. Their skills are mounted and giant slayer, which can reduce damage receipt and also increase damage to large units. They come with giant slayer for fighting large units and could be a funny early game surprise for any stupid overeager newbies trying to attack you with their boarding that some section players get in the game for free. Remember, don't wage war unless you have friends. Next up, we have the bow knight. It's a tier 3 ranged unit and their skills are just the same as the cavalry archers. They are a heavy bow cavalry and pretty much cavalry archers but better. Last but not least, we have the Elven infantry. The Elven melee troops are described as having weak attacks, though this is quite misleading. Ironically, their ability to counterattack gives them some of the highest DPS in the Lord of the Rings Rise to War game, rendering the game's description moot. There is no tier 1 Elven melee infantry meat shield for your early game hunters, so that might cause a few problems early on, but by the time you have to worry about that, you probably already have these guys anyway, or access to Numenorian managed troops. The warden is a tier 2 melee unit. After all this time, there's finally an Elven melee unit. Their skill is counterattack. When hit by enemies' normal attacks within range, they perform a counterattack that deals damage. Reducing normal attack damage, they are an infantry that relies on counterattacks. The herald is a tier 3 melee unit. Their skill is the same as the wardens, an infantry that also relies on counterattacks. They have very high damage and goes well mixed with doors. You may be curious to know that I didn't say herald has high damage before, and that's because their attack value range is just too large. I had to take a medium of it, so the value is still relatively low, even though the highest attack value is still quite high. Alright guys, we're finally finished with introducing the Elven units. For the next video, we will be introducing the race of men. See you guys next time.